I'm Trisha Adams. This is an episode of How Would I Paint That? This one's the Rocky Coast. I like to start with the reference photo, but unfortunately, I didn't get one. I decided that I would still talk about this painting because there were things that we could learn from it. And so let's get started with the painting. First thing is I love the palette knife technique that she has and the water. The water is fabulous. There's a lot of motion in this. I asked her, what is your focal point? And she said, oh, I didn't really have one. The reason why you need a focal point is if you don't have one, it's the same as talking without having a point to what you're saying. People won't want to listen. People won't want to look if you don't have something you're trying to say with your painting. When I asked her, where's the focal point? She said, well, I guess it's where the water makes a point into the land. And the reason why she said that is because that's a really strong compositional element. You recall that our eye wants to go to the point on triangles. The problem that I had was when I look to the point, I don't see what is supposed to be so interesting there. So when you direct people with the composition, then you put something cool there. There has to be what I call cheese. Like imagine your viewer is a mouse and is running through a maze and it gets to the end, it wants some cheese. It wants to have a reward for doing what you wanted them to do. So when I look over at the point there, I don't see anything particularly special. So that's what I would address. I would need to figure out what special thing I could put there, and then how I would change the other elements so they don't compete with that, and then maybe do a couple things to make it feel like there's more space in the painting. So let's start with the space. I noticed that there's a really dark, we're standing on a dark cliff, looks like, right there in the lower left. And that's a high point. We're looking down over all this water. And that's what I feel is like that dark is part of this high ground. But as I move to the right in painting, I notice that it's dark and I feel like it's down there in the little cove. So I'm a little confused about whether the dark is up here with me or whether it's down there in the cove. If I had the reference photo, I might be able to figure it out from that. I'm not bitter or anything. As far as making distance in this painting, the way you do that is you make everything that's far away have a softer edge, and the colors become grayer, meaning more neutral, and more toward a middle value. That means that I'm going to use yellow-green on this little my vantage point, we'll call it. The vantage point is going to have more yellow in the green, and then it's going to become grayer, meaning it's got more of its complement in it. Then I want to make sure that other things don't compete with the focal point. That means that where we've used white surf and dark rocks together, we're gonna tone that down unless it's at the focal point. And I'll do that for the far rocks, for that big rock in the middle, then there's a little one in the water too. All those will get toned down. I'm also going to soften the clouds, and that makes them be in the background and lets your eye glide over those. So I softened the clouds. One other thing I did is, the edge of the land, our vantage point, it was very straight. And I made a few notches in it. One notch, a rock that popped up, and another like little crack where you could see the water going through it. That irregular shape on the edge gives the eye something to look at, and it slows the viewer down, makes it feel a little more interesting. Now all I have left is the focal point. I got this idea from the artist herself. She put, I saw that there were some splash marks where the water was hitting the rocks, and I thought, okay, that could be something interesting. Let's emphasize that. Let's make a little bit more of that happening. We feel like, oh, this painting is about how hard those waves are crashing right there. So to recap, when you start a painting, think about why you chose the subject that you did. When you looked at it, there was something about it you liked. Of all the millions of things you could have chosen, you chose this. And so you really need to bear in mind what that was that made you want to paint it. And by picking a focal point, it's such a simple change to the way you approach a painting. Just before you start, say, well, what is the focal point? Is going to make a huge difference in your paintings. They're going to be stronger, and they're going to capture people's imagination much better. And then when you have when you've picked what you want to be the focal point, you look around for compositional elements that are going to help get your viewer there, and you emphasize those that do. You put the contrast there and take away some contrast elsewhere if it's going to compete with your focal point. Another thing to do in a landscape is to, because that has, you want to develop space in it, is I make an imaginary line, and I say anything on this side of the line is near, and everything on that side of the line is far. And I really make a difference in the colors that I use. Things that are far are going to be more neutral, more middle value. I'm also going to paint it softer so that it has the atmosphere between me and what I'm seeing far away. Please give me a like, and until next time, happy painting.